Grade 12s, it's me, your teacher. So the last time I saw you, we spoke about the results of the Cuban Missile Crisis as well as how it ended. I'm not going to go over that again, but just really quickly. Khrushchev fired, Kennedy looks good, Cuba remains communist but feels betrayed, and Khrushchev and Kennedy do set up a hotline from the Kremlin in Russia to the White House in Washington, and they also agreed to a nuclear test ban, so nobody is building any more nuclear bombs or testing nuclear bombs. Right, so this is another cartoon. I'm such a fan of cartoons and analyzing them. So this is an American cartoon, if I'm not mistaken, and it says there, let's get a lock for this thing. And you can see on the one side you've got Kennedy, and on the other side you've got Khrushchev, and then within this box is this hideous, like monstrous thing that's crawling out called nuclear war. So let's just ask the question again. What do you think the message of this cartoon is? And what are the visual clues that show you that this is the message of the cartoon? So I'm not going to give you the answer this time. This time I would like you to put the answers in the comment section below, so I can check if you're getting the hang of analyzing cartoons and answering questions on cartoons. So just to reiterate, the questions are: what do you think is the message of the cartoon? And what are the visual clues that show you that this is the message of the cartoon? So in summary, Fulgencio Batista was the unpopular but capitalist leader of Cuba. The USA supported the Batista-led government in Cuba. However, during a revolution, Batista was overthrown by Fidel Castro. Castro favored a more communist approach and exiled many middle-class Cubans. The USA organized or armed these exiles to launch a counter-revolution, which was called the Bay of Pigs invasion. This invasion failed as less people than expected joined the movement, and it became obvious that the invasion was sponsored by the USA. Castro no longer trusted the USA to leave Cuba alone, and turned to the USSR for help. The USSR secretly provided intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBM, I apologize for that little mistake, IBCM, to Cuba. The USA discovered these missiles due to U-2 spy planes flying over the area. The USA thought that Cuba, and by extension the USSR, was planning a nuclear attack on their country. The USSR and Cuba claimed that the missiles were for self-defense to avoid another US invasion. The USA announced a blockade on all ships entering Cuba from the USSR. The USSR claimed that the USA had no right to block them on international waters. Khrushchev indicated the danger of the US missiles placed in Turkey and Italy. The world was on the brink of nuclear war. The USA agreed to withdraw their missiles in Turkey and Italy in exchange for the removal of the missiles from Cuba. Alright, so that's basically a summary of the Cuban Missile Crisis. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor and try to construct a paragraph using this summary that answers the question. I'm going to give you a limit of about 8 lines, and you need to answer the question: how did the Cuban Missile Crisis cause tension between the USA and the USSR? So I'm going to repeat that. A paragraph of 8 lines that answers the question: how did the missiles in Cuba create tension between the USA and the USSR? So you can see I've given you a lot more than 8 lines here. So what I want you to do is I want you to summarize the summary and make it even shorter, where you just touch on the main aspects. Okay, you'll notice that some of the things have been underlined for you, so that kind of highlights what is kind of important for you to mention. Alright, So this is another video that basically just summarizes the Cuban Missile Crisis. I will link it in the description below. And I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this answered any of your questions that you might have had on the Cuban Missile Crisis. If you still don't understand, please feel free to drop me a comment or send me a message on WhatsApp or an email, and I will explain it to you personally. Thank you so much for listening. Bye bye.